What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fier. Check it. Hey, Joe.
Ooh, hello.
How's it going? Are you meditating? Did I hit record in the midst of a meditation?
Indeed, you did.
You sound very chilled out.
I am.
Or just high AF.
You take your pick. Yeah. No, I'm breathing. I'm chilled
I know.
out.
He's not high. I can attest.
Well, we were at, this is kind of funny because we were at the Padre game last night. And we were looking at our he's scored a big contract, Manny Machado, on the Padres, and he just constantly looks so calm.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you look? We were both looking at him. It's like, how would life be to just look so calm? And I don't know, it's probably an appearance thing. And some people just have that natural tendency.
No, he really is like zenned out looking.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, look up a picture. He looks very high a lot of times.
Compared to Austin Hedges, who looked like he was going to shoot us with laser beams.
If you don't know what any of this means, just Google search him. Manny Machado and Austin Hedges. Manny Machado, he's just chill. Austin Hedges, he's got crazy eyes, but that's focus, damn it. Yeah. That is focus.
Well, it's funny because we're sitting here going, last night we went to the Padre game, but this episode's coming out, I think, on like July 28th or something like that. And so, like, no, we went to the Padre game like 2 months ago.
That's a good point. Hopefully we go before then, before July. Yeah, so it was, it's a good time. So welcome to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast. My name is Joe Fier, and I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Mr. Wolf, Matthew Wolf.
Like Bond.
James
Bond.
That's right.
And I like that I'm fabulous. I love being fabulous.
Yes, you do. It's a good time. We were thinking, actually, that would be, you know how like at the baseball stadiums, they all have like their walkout music. Yeah. Like they have like whatever, the pump up jam. And then like you have the relievers. Usually the closer has like some epic thing because it's like this big. And we're like, man. Oh, yeah, that was it. Because there was someone on the other team, the Phillies, called named J.D. Hammer.
Yeah.
And we're like, dude, that is a badass name for a pitcher. Like, bring out the hammer.
Yeah.
But then we're like, wait, our names are pretty cool, too. Like, bring out the wolf. Bring out the fear.
Yeah, that's true.
we should be baseball
We need to
players.
be a pitcher-catcher combo. And this, like, actually saying this out loud, there's some innuendos that probably don't sound great. But
you blew yourself, Matt.
I just blew myself.
Tobias.
Oh, jeez.
I've been watching Arrested Development a lot lately. Again,
oh, yeah, this episode is degrading fast. Let's bring
not.
it back around.
All right, you know who's going to bring it back for us?
Paul Miners.
That's right, he is. He is the productivity machine. He's actually passionate about productivity, which I thought was an interesting statement. But dude, it comes out. Like he's passionate.
Yeah, he's really excited about
freaking good.
And I mean, I nerd out about this stuff too because I'm not out there teaching productivity strategies, but I am very much a productivity nerd myself.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of the tools and strategies he talked about, I have experience with. So,
and guess what? I am not. I'm learning. I'm trying.
But we talked about a lot of different strategies. That time blocking your days and making sure you've got your task list set up right, and batching stuff, and we talked about podcasting a little bit and some really interesting, exciting ways that you can leverage podcasts that most businesses don't, but would be pretty freaking easy for you to do it.
Yeah, he laid out a bunch of tools that he loves to use and how he automates a lot of this kind of just the day-to-day stuff that we all kind of take for granted.
The tools part, I think, was my favorite part of this episode when he was kind of rattling off tools because there was 3 or 4 of them that I'm like, I need that.
Yeah.
I need that. I need that.
And I mean, me being more the outward, communicator, I would say, for our brand to like bring on podcast people, set up meetings, and interact with our clients and customers and all that stuff Paul actually laid out his process, and it's very, very simple, but we should all be using this, is to clear out his inbox and stay on top of everything and achieve inbox zero, which I think I've only achieved once. That is when I opened my Gmail account for the very first time.
That's funny.
No, I go in waves. But like it was honestly a lesson for me. I was like, damn, it's just like so easy. It's just sticking with it, and it's like because I know there's so many people very successful, and this is what's interesting is Matt and I have this interesting dynamic. Is you are like inbox zero most of the time, I think. And I am not most of the time, but I stay fairly close. And there's so many successful folks out there that just have thousands, or I've even seen 100,000 messages in the inbox.
Are you trying to justify the
Yes, me?
inbox unclutter?
Hell yeah, I am.
You're trying to justify your inbox clutter?
Yeah. Well, shit. If they can pull it off, then I can do it.
So if you're trying to find reasons to justify your inbox clutter, don't listen to this episode.
I'm just kidding. I'm definitely. It's giving me hope.
Yeah.
I have hope.
Joe has hope for once. There's finally hope for Joe.
Finally. Yeah, because I'm definitely a hopeless soul, right? Yeah, right. That's not my middle name. Yeah, man. So it's good. There goes my note sheet. And you know what? We took some damn notes for you, and they're epic.
Yeah.
And
but you just threw them on the floor.
No, those are different notes. Those are my podcast notes. I've already done with the podcast here. Okay. We did that episode. But you guys listening, or you listening, there's not multiple yous probably. Go to hustleandflowchart.com/comp, COMP. For about a week, you have free notes for this episode. So go get them quickly. You just gotta sign up for free. You'll get the notes immediately. There's no weird shenanigans and all that stuff. But you do, you're gonna basically have this action guide that's printed and ready for you to act on this episode.
Yeah, and he talks about a lot of strategies for productivity and a lot of tools and a lot of various resources that you're gonna want to remember. So make sure you grab those notes. hustleandflowchart.com/comp. And if you want to support the show, we need support.
We love support.
We love support. We don't need support. We love support.
We love it. Yeah, and we actually don't need it, but it helps us help you.
But do you think they'll support us more if they think we do need it?
I don't want to look like we're desperate.
Okay, go to egpletter.com and subscribe to the newsletter, because then we're going to mail you the notes in the mail every month.
What? In the mail?
Yeah, we're going to give you access to our private forum because we're awesome.
Yeah.
And we're going to give them training every month with like past guests and like a lot of cool stuff. You get all the backlogs, the archives.
There's a lot of backlogs too.
Yeah.
Like you got a library of knowledge to just have fun with.
Yeah.
And implement.
The sum of all human knowledge is inside of our members area for you to explore.
It's in the vault. That's the vault. Here it's metal. It's very, very strong. It doesn't sound like tin at all, like a hydro flask.
No, not at all.
Yeah, go there. egpletter.com. That's like your fast track to just get everything and stay in the know, because the more you're in the know, let's be honest, you're going to make more money.
You're also going to support this podcast and let us know that you're enjoying what we're doing by signing up. That's like your seal of approval that you like what we're doing. So go to egpletter.com and to get the notes for free on this episode, assuming you're getting them in that limited window, go to hustleandflowchart.com/comp, grab the notes. Let's go talk to Paul Miners.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt and Joe, thank you for having me on.
Of course. Yeah, so we got introduced through some podcast connections, and I feel like, if there's a good connection out there saying we got to chat then. We don't really question it much. And then
yeah.
Upon further review.
Get on.
Yeah. I mean, you're the man when it comes to just productivity and, just the right tools, automating the right things, it looks like, not everything. I don't think we've had a good productivity expert on the show, like specifically.
No, we've had like a lot of business owners who have little bits and pieces of advice of productivity, but nobody really that's the specialty.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm not a huge fan of that word expert. I try not to use that label on myself, but my take has always just been, look, I'm passionate about productivity, and I like to think that I'm pretty organized and get stuff done, and I'm going to just share what I've learned, really. That's my strategy so far.
Yeah. Well, you share, I know you have your podcast, the Paul Miners podcast, all about productivity, business, self-improvement, all sorts of cool topics that we all need and love too, saving the time. So we're curious just to get to know you and your story. Can you take us back to what got you so passionate about productivity and kind of what led you to the stage you're at now?
Yeah, I think subconsciously it's always been something I'm interested in. I think I can probably date it back to like when I was at school or university. I would get given like a schedule for when I was doing a new course or a new paper. They'd give you the schedule of like, this is when every single exam is, this is when every single assignment needs to be turned in. Here are all the dates you need to know. I was like, okay, cool. Let me just start plugging this all into my calendar. And then I would kind of take it a step further, and I'd be like, okay, this essay, it's going to be 1,000 words. I know I'm going to need like an hour to do like paragraph 1 and 2 and the introduction, blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of go through this process of dissecting these assignments and studying and when I was going to read chapters for lectures and things. And I just dissected it all down and into little pieces and start putting it onto my calendar. And so it was really just something that evolved. It's something I started doing quite naturally just while I was studying. And so I think just subconsciously, it's always been something I'm interested in. It just made sense at the time, right? I've got all this stuff I know I'm going to have to do. It's non-negotiable. I know I need to get these assignments turned in. So how can I make it really easy? How can I plan my time really well to make sure I'm doing everything on time and I'm not kind of scrambling at the last minute.
Right.
And then it was a few years later, I'd say probably when I started working full time. And I've always been interested in business and I knew I wanted to work for myself, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was actually through Simon Sinek, who people may recognize the name either from the very famous TED Talks he's done on Start With Why, or his books as well. He's written a lot about leadership. And one of his most successful books, Start With Why, kind of talks about how you can find your why or your purpose. And I kind of consumed some of his material and did a course of his, which is about really helping you to understand who you are, what makes you tick, and what is your why. And I found that I'm someone that's very driven by self-improvement, achieving my goals. And if that's my why, I just want to kind of improve myself and be the best version of myself I can be. And I'd say most people are probably fairly similar. If that's my why, then productivity is how I do that. The way I look at it, if I can be more effective and more efficient with how I spend my time, I can improve myself. I can be better at work, or more successful in my business. And productivity is the vehicle that I think we can all use to just be more successful, achieve more, and get more out of life. And so it really kind of spiraled from there. I started writing about productivity on my blog. Again, like I said, just sharing what works for me. And I think that all must have started back in like 2013, 2014, something like that.
Wow.
And but that's how I got started. Yeah.
So you've been at it for a while, and it sounds like, you're just documenting your process because you have a podcast, the blog. I know you do a lot of book summaries on your blog as well. Looks like that's probably a good SEO lead gen type thing for you. Just seems like you're kind of covering all your bases, which is really cool. And then you do consulting, probably to teach the similar stuff you're doing. It seems like Is that it? Pretty
describing much? Describing what I do is pretty interesting for people. There's a kind of running joke in my family. I'm one of 4 boys, and there's a joke because my parents, when they are introducing themselves and they say they have 4 boys, they say, right, we have one son who's a pilot, one of them is a policeman, the other one's a cameraman, and Paul, we're not really sure what he does. So I sort of have, definitely like a lot of plates that I'm spinning. There's kind of I have my blog and my podcast and all the content that I'm producing. And I really use that to just kind of build an audience and build a personal brand. I use that to sell digital products. Like I have a productivity course, a consulting course that I sell. And then there's kind of another whole half to my business, which is consulting. So now I've specialized in a few different tools like Asana, which is a project management tool, Pipedrive, which is a sales CRM, and a couple of others as well. And basically, I found there are a lot of small business owners, small to medium-sized business owners who don't have the time to like learn how to use these tools, despite, there's loads of free material. It's just one of those things. They want someone to just sit down with them and say, right, this is how you should use it, and set it up with them and train their team. And so that's how I spend a large amount of my time now. But in terms of like my hustle, there's a lot of things that I'm doing, and I've kind of it's really nice because it keeps things interesting, and I can diversify my income, having income coming from consulting and sponsorship and affiliate marketing, and a few places.
Nice.
Cool. Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot, so you probably have some decent systems to make sure that you consistently do a lot. So let's go ahead and start diving into some of the ways that you're using your time wisely and building systems and automations. And I'm not even totally sure where to start.
Well, let's. I wanted to ask you a question. And I've always kind of wondered this about very productive people. Do you procrastinate ever?
Yeah, I do. Like occasionally, I'm just, I know there's something I need to do and maybe I put it off, but sometimes I'll put something off kind of in an intentional way, not because I'm just feeling lazy or because I don't want to do it. It's more because I don't think now is the right time to do something. Or I think there's other more high priority things I need to work on now. There's just better ways that I can spend my time. So there's things I will occasionally just push back again and again and again, but it's more that I'm deprioritizing something rather than I would say procrastinating. But I occasionally struggle like anyone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think this leads into of what you're asking, Matt, is like, where would you recommend someone if they don't feel like they're as efficient or they're as productive as they would like to be, so they're willing to improve, which I'm sure most people listening here are, or you wouldn't be listening. So where's like a good starting point for optimizing our time in business and life?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think it's important to not get caught up too much on tools, right? Because I think that's the shiny, distracting part of productivity that we often get caught up in is which tool should I use? And people often think that they're not organized or not productive because they're using the wrong calendar or because they're using the wrong to-do list. And they think if they try something else, that's going to fix all their problems. And I see it a lot, people often switching between tools. And I think very rarely is the tool actually the problem. And it's usually how you're using it. It's usually the principles and routines that you've kind of adopted that are what are letting you down. It's just hard to admit. So I think, there's a bit of a process that you can go through. Firstly, you need to have some kind of clear sense of direction about what it is you want to achieve going forward. And actually somebody asked me the other day, he said, do you plan ahead quite far? And interestingly, actually, no, I don't. Like maybe a few years ago, I was planning like a couple of years ahead. I had a bit of an idea of what I wanted to do. Right now, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, like with my business. I'm not super motivated to grow much more than where I'm at right now or grow a team. I'm really happy with the state that I'm at right now. So I don't really have that many long-term goals. I mean, definitely personally, there's things my wife and we've got on the radar, having our second child and stuff like that. But I'm not really one for planning like 10 or 5 years out. Let's put it that way. So really, when it comes to planning, I have more like values and principles and beliefs that I follow. And so these are just guiding beliefs that help me make decisions, if anything.
Right.
But I think, in saying all that, you want to have some idea of what's important to you right now. So when I start my year, or actually ending the previous year, I'm looking at what do I want to achieve next year? Like, what are some general things I'd like to do? How would I like to spend my time? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? And I set some targets and things and put some numbers on them. And those are things that kind of guide my decisions throughout the year. But then really on a kind of weekly, daily basis, I think it's really important to have some kind of task list where you can really lay everything out. So I use Asana, which is a project management tool. But again, the tool doesn't really matter that much. There's pros and cons to every tool that we use. But having everything kind of laid out in a tool, this is everything I need to do in the next couple of weeks, and not having to try and rack your brain or remember everything you need to do is really important. So just having it all kind of do that brain dump, get it all out, and then you can start to kind of prioritize and order everything. Tools like Asana, for example, they have like timelines and Gantt charts. So you can actually lay everything out and say, right, well, I need to do that one first. And then in order to do this one, I really have to do that one first so I can create a link there. And just that thought exercise of thinking about the priority, the sequence of in which order you need to do things is really useful. So using some kind of tool like that to just kind of plan out, this is what my next couple of weeks looks like, I think is really, really useful.
That's good.
And then the kind of third step, and this is where I get real kind of nitty gritty, is I actually do something called time blocking. That's I don't know if there's any one set phrase or term for it, but I call it time blocking. So that's this practice of basically scheduling time on your calendar for tasks that you need to do. So I'm looking at my calendar now, and this morning, I've been recording some videos for my YouTube channel. I've got a blog post to write. This afternoon, I'm meeting someone. So all these little tasks and things, they're actually blocks of time on my calendar. And the reason I think putting them on your calendar is so useful is, number one, with all your tasks, it forces you to think about how long is it going to take to do? Because to put a block on your calendar, you have to allocate half an hour, 2 hours. So it forces you to think, how long do I need and when am I going to do it? So if you have 10 things to do in a week and you start putting blocks on your calendar, maybe your calendar's filled with the first 8. Now, if you want to put one of those other 2 things on, well, you're going to have to take something off. It's sort of like playing Tetris on your calendar. You're going to have to prioritize and say, right, well, what can I take off to make room for this other thing? So it forces you to be much more realistic with your time. And so it's something I've been doing, like I said, back at university. That was when I first started time blocking. And the scary thing for some people hearing this is like, oh, I couldn't possibly have such a strict, rigid system for planning my time. But I say, like, with my calendar, with my task list, these are tools that I have open all the time and I'm constantly updating. So it's a bit like how, if you imagine a chef in a kitchen, when he's cooking, he doesn't go to the cupboard and get the salt and then salt the dish and then put it back. He has the salt there on the counter in front of him ready to go. It's like his tools. It's like a mechanic has a tool belt.
Yep.
They have these tools readily available. And so my calendar and my task list, these are in my tool belt. I've constantly got them open. And so throughout the day, as my plan changes, if I finish something early or if something comes up, I'm constantly shuffling blocks around. And so it helps me to kind of plan and update my plan on the fly in real time as I need to. So it's actually sounds like a bit of a strict system, but it's actually very flexible when you're doing things properly. So I'll stop talking there. But that's kind of a bit of an outline of how I kind of manage my time.
That's cool.
I mean, we're both big proponents of the time blocking stuff, and we're even like it even adds more complexity when you have two partners that try to time block and block times against each other and things like that.
So it's working together is key for us, communication, and not stepping on each other's toes, for sure. I like the flexible idea of time blocks, actually. I haven't really heard anybody talk about that. Being almost like a fluid, so it sounds like you start with a good plan, and then if something ends early or maybe canceled, like a meeting, you have the flexibility to shift around the blocks as you need still. And
like I'll plan my week on a Friday. I'll do like what I kind of call a weekly review. So on a Friday, I'm looking at everything I have coming up over the next 7 days. And I do this on a Friday because it's kind of a nice way to close out the week, and I can kind of start the new week with a plan ready to go. And so I'll look at, right, this is what I have coming up next week. Let's put some blocks on. Let's go, right, here's some stuff I need to do. Let's create those blocks. And I don't want to fill my week. That's important as well. You want to have some white space available for those last minute things that come up. The plan it's not going to go to plan. You're going to have to move things around. So let's not have the expectation that we need to create the perfect plan. So I'm trying to get my calendar like 80% like set. Here's the blocks that I think I'm going to do, and this is how I think I'm going to spend my time. But yeah, as stuff comes up, a call gets cancelled. I think it was on Monday actually. I kind of finished a bunch of work earlier than I thought it was, because I often overschedule. I'll plan too long to do something. I do that intentionally so that when I finish early, I've kind of got the gift of time now. So I actually finished a piece of work early, and I was like, well, my wife was out. I work from home sometimes. So my wife was out, and I was like, well, I've probably got like half an hour here, and a little half-hour block that I had on the calendar for the following day, I quickly shuffled it across, and I was able to do it on Monday ahead of time. And so yeah, it's very fluid. You can definitely move things around as you need to. So essentially, when I get to the end of my week, because I'm updating blocks to actually show how long things actually took as well, at the end of the week, I basically have a perfect record of exactly what I did. So over time, it's really cool to be able to go back and look at how you spent your time, and especially if you're running a business, to kind of have that view of what you're spending time on, and you can use that to make better decisions in the future is really, really valuable.
Okay, I'm really interested in this now, because you're adding in.
What, you weren't before?
I am, but no, he got me hooked. But you got me hooked, Paul. But you're hooking me even more, because I'm one to overstack a calendar. Matt is aggressively. Matt, don't break your neck with how much you're nodding. And basically, I like what you said is that you overestimate, so you have the gift of time, which is the best gift of all, because you can't get that back. And
well, if you're overestimating, maybe you would think you can do 8 tasks in a day, but because you're overestimating, you only book in 6.
Right? Yeah, it's overestimating for the time you're allowing yourself. Is that something like? Because I know for me, I think a lot of people is you underestimate how long it's going to take for a task. So is this kind of your way to battle that, more or less?
Exactly. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Most people will underestimate, and they say, oh, look, that should take an hour. And yeah, maybe in an ideal world where you're not being distracted, people aren't walking over to you or chatting you on Slack and disrupting you, or you don't have to go and answer the door if you work at home. Yeah, maybe if all the conditions are perfect, you might get that done in an hour, but chances are things are going to take longer. And especially with maybe more like creative work, writing a blog post or doing a video, sometimes it takes longer. And so if we plan for the worst case scenario, which is I usually add about 50%, 25 to 50%. So if it's an hour, I'll plan an hour and a half. Then we can kind of plan for that worst case, prepare for that worst case scenario. And hopefully if the plan does go well, I'll finish that 1.5 hour block after say 45 minutes or an hour. And again, I adjust that block to say, right, it only took 45 minutes or an hour. And now I can the next block that I had queued up for 2:30, I can start at 2:00, and that everything kind of moves up.
Yeah. Now, how strict are you in the moment when you've got something blocked out and you're working on the thing in that time window? You know, you mentioned things like Slack and maybe emails popping up or the phone ringing. When you're in the moment, when you blocked out an hour and that stuff pops up, things start dinging or ringing around you, are you very strict and you stay in the moment and stay in the flow of what you're doing, or will you often find yourself breaking away from what you're doing?
Good question. Yes and no. So it really depends. Like, firstly, I think you need to get your notifications right on your phone and your computer. So like, the only notifications I really get on my phone are like text messages and calls, even things like, you know, Twitter, Facebook, even Facebook Messenger. I've kind of turned most of that off. So I'll kind of just get to them when I see them, like at lunch or something, if I'm scrolling through my phone. But yeah, so if I do get a text or something flies into my computer screen, I'll quickly glance at it just to see what it's about. And generally we can make a quick decision about, do I need to respond to that now or can it wait? Now, most things can wait. It doesn't matter if I have to wait an hour to get back to somebody on Slack or a text. It's usually not going to, the world isn't going to burn down if I don't get back within an hour. I think we feel pressured sometimes to get back straight away because instant messaging by its very nature, kind of, there's this expectation that you get back to them straight away. And I've just made the decision that actually, no, I'll just get back to you when I'm ready. Yeah. Now, sometimes maybe I get a call from a client and actually I've been trying to get them, I've been trying to close a sale, or I need something from them so I can do some work, and they call me. If I decide to, I might make a split second decision there and then to be like, yeah, that's actually pretty important. I'm happy to stop what I'm doing because I know that this is really important. So you just have to kind of, usually, 80% of the time, you'll probably ignore it. But I think if it's a high priority thing, you can respond to it if you need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Are you familiar? I'm sure you are, but David Allen's Getting Things Done?
Yeah.
So we actually had him on the podcast, and it sounds like a handful of the philosophies you've adopted are similar to his strategies, because he's got the the concept of brain dumping, and then
which is my favorite
part, and then doing a weekly review on everything that you've brain dumped, and it sounds like there's some similarities, and are some of the philosophies that you follow, are they influenced by that, or?
Yeah, definitely. Getting Things Done, it's quite a sort of quite a rigid sort of philosophy to follow. And look, I think it definitely is going to work like wonders for a lot of people. Personally, I've chosen not to follow it to a T. Like, I've borrowed parts of it that I really like. Mm-hmm. So there's things in there, he has this concept of next actions, which are sort of small little things that, maybe aren't time sensitive. You'll just kind of do them when you get a chance. If you have 15 minutes before a meeting, or the call you budgeted half an hour for ends early, you can quickly look at one of those next actions and see if there's something quick and easy you can do. So I really like that idea, which I've borrowed. Yeah. Same with, he has a way of separating tasks into like a waiting list. Mm-hmm. Waiting is kind of stuff that, maybe it's a client, I'm waiting to hear back from them. It's like a task that I need to do. Maybe I need to import someone's data to their account. I can't really do it right now until they answer some question that I've asked them. So it's kind of a way of separating those tasks that you can work on now from the ones where you're waiting for something on. So I've borrowed concepts that I really like. And I think that's what, anyone can do, like listening to this podcast, reading books. There's no one perfect system. I think the system is the one, or the perfect system is the one that you design for yourself, the one that you actually follow. Trying to kind of change yourself to fit somebody else's way of working can be really hard. And I'm more of the approach of, I'll kind of look at all these ideas, but I'll borrow the parts that work the way I like to work.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because you can't apply a strategy and of the GTD method. Like, I know, Matt, you follow it probably a lot closer.
Yeah, but I mean, it like Paul said, it's my variation of the GTD method.
Yeah, and my variation's different than yours, Matt. And because like Matt uses OmniFocus primarily for his to-do list. Yeah, whereas I'm using more the Asana. I used to use Asana a lot. Now it's more Notion, but same idea is you have kind of a process. And for me, like the brain dumping aspect of your process, his process, doesn't matter. Just getting stuff out of your head, I thought was the most relieving part of the whole thing. Yeah. Most people don't do that.
Yeah. And there's things like, I think in GTD, David Allen says the only things you should put on your calendar are time sensitive things. So like meetings like this, that we've got an hour block now for this podcast. That's something that would go on the calendar. That's time sensitive. It needs to happen at a specific time. But things like tasks under the GTD approach, he would not be putting on the calendar. But now I've decided actually time blocking is something I really like. It works really well for me. So that's what I do. But GTD doesn't have that. So yeah, again, you kind of just borrow the parts that you like. And I kind of just cobbled together the system or workflow, a way of working that works for me.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so I have a question, and this is we have notes in front of us. We actually have a research assistant that helps us with like ideas to go on the podcast. And there's a note that she wrote that I'm kind of intrigued by. So hopefully you know what I'm asking here. But she said that you have a data-based, like objective, scientific way to analyzing your tasks.
What? I don't know what they're referring to.
Okay, well then
notes failed you, Matt.
She's fired.
I'll take it. But
yeah, that's funny. Well, I was going to ask, and because with our podcast we do this, and you might do this in your podcast, so this might be a nice little overlap conversation. But we batch everything we do in the podcasting, just recording time for us, for Matt and I's time.
Yeah.
And that it's been like the saving grace, because we had previous podcasts and they've all kind of fizzled out because of the consistency just kind of dropped off, where it was just like, hey, Matt, when do you have some extra time? And that does not work. So this, we're planned out months ahead of time. You saw it in Calendly when you booked. And we typically do about minimum 2, but max 4 per day. So what's your philosophy around batching tasks and maybe combining it with this method we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, batching is great. It's, I mean, I'm doing it as well. Like, so I have kind of like themes for my days, like Monday, for example, because most of my clients are in the States and Canada, and in New Zealand, we're sort of a day ahead. It's like time traveling. So on Mondays, most of my clients aren't really working. So it's a day that I can allocate to content. That's kind of the theme for the day, is content. Theming is actually a concept I've borrowed from Mike Vardy from productivityist.com.
Nice.
And so it's kind of the overarching theme for the day. It's not that I'm only going to do content that day. It's just that it's sort of the primary focus. And so Monday, for example, I'm usually publishing a blog post for the week. I am writing a new post for the following week. I'll have to record a podcast. Maybe I'm doing some video. I'm just kind of in content mode, especially with things like recording. I work at a co-working space as well, but when I'm recording for my podcast or YouTube, I have to be at home. You have to get the microphone set up, get lights set up and things. And I think just when you're so it's not just setting up my environment, but getting in the mental space as well. Once I do a podcast, I'm all set up, which is great, but I'm mentally like, great, I'm in the zone now. I'm feeling good. I've got some energy. I'm speaking clearly, because sometimes it takes a bit of time to warm up and get going.
Oh yeah.
And so because I'm warm now, my setup is ready to go. I may as well do a couple of videos. I did that last week. I did like 3 or 4 videos in an afternoon. My videos are pretty short. And so, yeah, I think you can really realize some efficiency benefits by grouping a lot of those types of things together. So yeah, all for it.
Yeah, I know. The batching, like everything we're trying to do now. I like the themes of the day idea too, because that's something I don't think we've totally adopted perfectly, not as a systematic way. But like we're talking to another guy, Chris Guerrero. He manages all sorts of different companies, and he themes everything out. And like Wednesdays for him is his only consulting day, like when he advises with all of his clients. So it was kind of just this theme. It's almost like the theme of today is theming your weeks and days. So batching, I mean, that's how you can manage big companies, or even manage something that seems like something that's kind of within your grasp, like you have. And speaking of that, like what kind of team do you have, if any?
It's really just me, and my wife helps me with a few things at the moment. Wow. So yeah, I've been working pretty much on my own since I started. Really, I've been doing this full time since the end of beginning of 2017. Really, I've been doing this myself. But and at that time when I quit my job, my wife and I, we actually took 6 months to travel, and I was kind of doing this part time. But yeah, she helps me with a few things. We have an 8-month-old boy now, so she's pretty focused on him at the moment. She still helps me with a few little, helping with email and stuff, and a few other little tasks during the week. But it's actually just me, and I am in the process of trying to find a virtual assistant. I've had experiences with virtual assistants in the past, didn't go that well. They needed a lot of management, and probably my fault for not managing things properly or hiring the wrong person. I think you definitely get what you pay for.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm in the process of trying to find someone now. I would like someone to work with who can help just take a few things off my plate. But going forward, like I said earlier, I'm not particularly motivated by growing too much more. If in like 3 years from now, I haven't if the business hasn't failed and my income hasn't dried up, that would be great. If I could just kind of maintain the level I'm at, that would make me happy. I'm not super motivated to employ lots of people because it looks like a lot of stress and responsibility, and not that that's wrong. I'm not saying anyone doing that is doing it wrong. It's just for me, for the business that I want to run, for the balance that I want to have with my lifestyle, I don't really want to hire lots of people. And I do have a few contractors that I work with. Somebody helps me with my website. Obviously, you have an accountant. So I contract with a few people to help with specific projects. I'm looking at using someone now to help with some SEO. So I'm definitely a fan of contracting people for projects or kind of a just-in-time basis. Just when you need someone, you can contract someone. But yeah, that's just my approach. I'm not saying hiring anyone is bad. I'm just kind of happy with where I'm at. And the other thing as well is it's a lot easier to maintain productivity and be organized when all you have to do is manage yourself.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Is if you have yourself down, you might as well keep rolling with that. It seems like you're doing an impressive amount of stuff all at once as yourself too. So hats off to you, man.
Now. So I'm not referring to tools right now. I want to talk about tools for a second. So I'm already getting ahead of myself in this statement. So I want to talk about tools, and I don't want to talk necessarily about the actual productivity tools. You guys use Asana. I think Joe said he uses Asana. I use OmniFocus. Like you said, the tool doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. You kind of build your system around it. But I'm curious, as far as from an automation standpoint, what sort of automation tools do you use in your business to help you stay productive? So stuff just happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of automation, and I think this is a great way that you can kind of, in a sense, scale without hiring. So Zapier is a big one for me. I love Zapier. I do it. It kind of factors into my consulting quite a lot because a lot of clients want to automate stuff. But yeah, it really does handle a lot of manual stuff that I have to otherwise do manually. So, for example, with my consulting, somebody usually finds me on YouTube. They'll go to my website, and the call to action is go and book an introductory call with me. And they can schedule that using Calendly. Now, when I started, I would manually enter that data into Pipedrive, my CRM. Maybe it took 10 minutes per lead to just kind of copy across all the information, set up some activities for myself as well to call them and that kind of thing. And then I thought, actually, Zapier can do this for me. And so now it handles all of that, happens almost instantly, and it means I'm not having to manually do that. So I'm a huge fan of automation. Zapier is a big one for me. I've automated, I don't even know how many Zaps I've got up and running at the moment, but there's a lot of stuff that really helps me to be quite organized and have stuff go to the right place. Like when I have a new client, for example, that has paid, that then gets marked as 1 in Pipedrive, and it'll then go in. Zapier will then set up a bunch of tasks for me in Asana, because now there's a bunch of things I need to do to onboard that client again. So now I don't have to manually do that or use a template. Zapier just does it all for me.
Oh man!
So big fan of Zapier. Another tool that I really like is on the Mac. It's called Hazel. It's basically a document kind of automation tool. So one of the main ways that I use it is throughout the month, I get a lot of receipts from things like, paying for Zoom or Dropbox or MailChimp, all these services that I'm signed up for to run my business. And they email you a receipt. And I need to kind of save that receipt or PDF and put it in Dropbox. So I've kind of got it for my accounting purposes, and a lot of people don't do this, or they wait till the end of the year and they have to spend a lot of time doing it. I've actually set up firstly an email rule. Email rules are pretty good for automation, but I have an email rule that will say, right, when MailChimp sends me that receipt, forward it to Zapier. Zapier will then save that, take that attachment and put it in Dropbox. Hazel, which is this automation tool, is watching Dropbox. And when it sees a PDF come in with certain keywords like MailChimp and receipt, it'll extract the invoice date. It'll rename the file to the date of the invoice, call it MailChimp, and it'll put it in the correct accounting folder. So all of that kind of stuff, mail rules, Zapier to the right folder, renaming, all happens in the background. So when I get an email, I usually just have a notification on my computer that says Hazel's put this in the folder. I know it's all worked. And all that kind of document management that I would have otherwise had to do manually all just happens like magic in the background. So that's really cool.
Now, is that actually putting the data into your bookkeeping software as well? Or is that just kind of keeping records for you so it's easy to find in case you need them at the end of the year when you're doing your accounting?
Yeah, it's the latter. So it's just keeping those receipts and documents organized.
Gotcha.
With the actual input into accounting. Like, so I use Xero, which is a great New Zealand company.
Oh, I love Xero. I use Xero too.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So yeah, you probably know that it connects to your bank account. So the transaction that, Dropbox bills me for another month of storage, that transaction just shows up in Xero, and there's a rule set up in Xero that says, if it's merchant is Dropbox, code this to software expense or something. And so I just need to go into Xero maybe once a week and click yes to confirm all those transactions.
That's cool. Now, when you're talking to your consulting clients and whatnot, are there some common Zaps, uses for Zapier that you just find yourself going to or recommending to these folks?
Yeah, like a very common one, for example, with clients I work with on Pipedrive. So Pipedrive, again, it's a sales CRM. Mm-hmm. So for managing, we have a new lead, we need to track them through a sales process and then hopefully sell to them. Now, most people get inquiries through their website, through some kind of contact form. So they want to make sure that when somebody uses that form, all the information goes into Pipedrive. It sets up a contact, assigns the deal to someone, that kind of thing. So that's a very common one, is connecting a form on your website to a CRM like Pipedrive.
Yeah. Okay. And what's the craziest, all right, let's call it the most impressive automation you've done with Zapier? Is there one that stands out?
Oh man, I'd have to rack my brain. Nothing. I've done some pretty cool stuff.
I can't believe I did that.
Yeah, there are some moments like that where you have to say to someone like, I don't know if this is going to work. Give me a couple of hours and I'll come back to you and I'll let you know. Oh, yeah. I've done some pretty cool stuff, but nothing specific. Right.
I love Zapier and IFTTT. I mean, I nerd out about both those tools and try to make stuff play with each other all the time.
Well, I'm curious, like when you're working with Zapier or IFTTT, Paul, do you like map it out prior to, or do you just have a pretty good logic just in your mind? You're like, okay, well, I want this to happen, and this kind of just all hook up to each other.
Yeah, I mean, I've got plenty of experience using it now. So I can kind of just get in and start putting it together. I mean, it usually goes through a couple of rounds of testing and iterations where, you set up your trigger. You might set up a couple of action steps, like, okay, put it in Pipedrive and put it into a Google Doc or whatever it might need to, whatever you want to do. And you'll kind of do a test and you go, oh, okay, that didn't quite work, or that data doesn't look quite clean enough. So maybe I'll add a format step, and you can just slot new steps in. And the Zapier format is quite good if you need to like clean up data or do things like that. So often I'll go back, add a step or tweak something, test it again, and maybe go through a few iterations like that while I'm testing and tweaking. And then eventually I get it to a state where I'm like, yep, this looks pretty good. Let's just run it now. Let's just have it run live for a few days or a few weeks. And I'll usually, check in on it. I'll set a reminder, like check it after a week, see if that spreadsheet, that's being populated, is it all looking correct, that kind of thing. So usually I'll just kind of get it in and start figuring it out.
Got it. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned some automation so that when you get receipts, the receipts automatically go over to Hazel and get filed away. Do you have any other tips or tricks for managing your email inbox and kind of keeping that cleaned up all the time?
Yeah. Well, first one is unsubscribing from a lot of the junk that we often get. So we all, just through our natural internet lives, we end up subscribed to a lot of stuff, and our emails get shared around as well. So I'm very active about unsubscribing from newsletters and kind of junk that I'm getting in. Either I'll put it into my junk folder, or if I'm confident that I do recognize this is something I've signed up for, I will unsubscribe. Because whenever you sign up to a new service, they always put you on their mail list, and it's like your insurance company sending you corporate updates and things. I don't need that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is just kind of minimizing the volume. And then on a daily basis, I kind of follow, I can't remember. I think this might be a David Allen thing. I really can't remember, but he has this concept of the 4 Ds. And this relates not just to email, but kind of anything that enters your life's inbox or your tasks. So the Ds are like, you can either do it, delegate it, drop it, or defer it. So you can do something if it's important and it's urgent, and you can kind of do it within, like, say 2 minutes. Like if it's an email, maybe I'll just quickly reply to, and just once I've replied, I'll archive my message, because I don't leave it in my inbox. That's what a lot of people do, is they leave email in their inbox. I actually prefer to archive, so that hopefully I can get to inbox 0. There's nothing left. It means that everything's been dealt with. I will occasionally leave things in my inbox if I'm still thinking about it. I want to get back to someone later. But generally, I archive as I go to kind of signify that I've dealt with this now. So do it. Quickly respond, archive it. And I'm just going to trust that the person's going to respond to me, and it'll obviously pop back into my inbox later. If it's really important that I follow up, maybe it's a client, I will set a reminder, or that's when you can use things like snoozing. A lot of email clients now come with snoozing. So I'll send my reply and snooze the message. So if I don't hear back in 3 days, it'll pop back up. You can defer it. So this is stuff that's important work, but generally not urgent. And maybe it takes a bit longer as well. I know, okay, I'm going to need like half an hour to sit down and do this or do something before I can respond to this email. So that's stuff that will go onto your task list. And for me, it'll then go onto my calendar as a block of time as well. Do it, defer it. Then we have delegate it. I don't get to do much of this because I'm just working with my wife, and hopefully with a VA soon, I'll get to delegate a little bit more. But if you do have a team or some people that you work with, maybe there's somebody who's more suited to, who would be better suited to answer this email, or it's something they're responsible for. So you can kind of forward the email and delegate it to them. If you are working in a tool like Asana, you can actually create a task for them instead of just sending them an email, which is nice. And then finally, it's drop it. So then this is stuff that's like, it's just junk in your inbox, or even just like, you probably get it as well. Loads of people just use my contact form to try and sell me SEO services and get links on the website and all that kind of stuff. So just delete them. That's the final thing you can do. Yeah.
And I like that. Yeah, with the inbox 0 thing, it's like a quick response, and it's almost trusting. I like the archive thing. And I know we use Boomerang a lot, but now a lot of this stuff is built in, like the snoozing, or if you don't hear by a certain date, have it pop back up in your inbox.
Well, it's even built into Gmail now where you can send later, where you can actually go in and say, like, in 3 days, send this email, or send this email at 8 p.m. tonight, or whatever.
Yeah. Good point.
I think it was Mike Vardy as well, actually, at Productivityist, who said, he used a great analogy as well. So when you leave email in your inbox, it's a bit like when you get physical mail in your mailbox at the end of your driveway. I don't know how you have it, but we have a mailbox at the end of our driveway. And so, maybe at the bottom of your apartment building, you've got your mailbox, and you're getting all that mail. There's going to be some junk in there and stuff, and some actual bills and letters and things. And you're going to then pick the ones you want to read and then put it all back in your mailbox. That's kind of like what we're doing with our digital inboxes. But we don't do that in the real world. When we go to our mailbox, we collect everything. We clear the inbox completely, and then we sift through and we sort the mail. So the junk, this is advertising, that goes in the bin. You can delete that. This is a bill I need to pay. Okay, let's put that on my desk. I'll do that later. And you kind of sift through and sort the email. You don't go putting it back in the inbox. And so that's kind of how we should be treating our digital mailboxes as well.
Or if you're a complete nerd like me, you take all your mail and you load it up into OmniFocus and then delete and delegate and resort what you want.
Oh, is that how you do it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
do
you
that
actually
for both print mail and digital mail.
Yeah, that's true. You have an elaborate. See, this is where Matt and I totally differ. It's like, oh man, like I look at that, I'm like, I'm so impressed with how organized everything is. I'm like, oh my god, I have a whole different way of thinking. But like you said, we have our own unique systems, and then the tools that fit with our own unique systems. That's what's really cool, and I think that freedom feeling, it's like it's fit it for what works for you. Yeah. Don't overthink it.
No, my legitimate like snail mail process is my wife. She usually checks the mail and she'll come in and just throw the stack on my desk, and I'll sit there and sort through the mail, throw some stuff away. The stuff I don't throw away, I literally enter it into OmniFocus.
Yeah. Well, I know you won't forget it if it's an OmniFocus. So.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what you need to do, do it.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
I dig it. Now, let's see. Are there any other tools? I know you were talking about Zapier. You use Pipedrive for the CRM. Is that for just prospects and clients, through that sales process?
Yeah, essentially, when someone contacts me to inquire about getting some consulting, I'm managing that sales process in Pipedrive. When they've said, yep, I want to work with you, they pay. That's when kind of Pipedrive has done its job, and I actually manage working with the client in Asana.
Okay.
But I can mention loads of tools. Like, so another great kind of automation tool that I love is Text Expander, which you've heard of.
Great tool.
Yeah, so great for we all have the same email that we need to send again and again, like follow-up emails, or when somebody books a call with me, I send a quick thank you. I've got like dozens of email templates that I've programmed in. So it's really nice. If I get an email, I can quickly type what's called a little snippet. So it's usually like a semicolon, then like the word booking, and that will fill out, hi Matt, thanks for your booking, and I'll talk to you on this day, blah, blah, blah. And you can customize it. You can fill in names, and you can fill in paragraphs, or you can turn paragraphs on and off. It can be really kind of dynamic if you need it to be as well. So like email templates is a great use for text expander, but I use it for all sorts of things like links. I always need to be sending people links to like maybe pages of my website, or creating a payment link for paying for something on like a consulting payment on my website, or affiliate links. I need to send those around. So rather than having them stored in a note or just going and finding them online, I have them all programmed into text expander. So if someone's like, hey Paul, what's that tool you mentioned, I can quickly send somebody an affiliate link. So links, even I don't know about you, I have, when I'm typing, in my muscle memory, sometimes there are certain words I will mistype, and it's too late now. My fingers just always type it wrong. I can't fix it. And so I've programmed it so for certain words, like I think it's with like the word don't, sometimes the colon will go into, not the colon, the apostrophe. Sorry, the apostrophe will go in the wrong place. And it's just my fingers moving too fast, and I always mistype it with the apostrophe. So then Text Expander sees that and it can correct it for me. So little things like that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Text Expander. I actually got my email report from them today. They send a report every month, and I think last month I saved about 3.5 hours just on typing.
Holy
so
crap.
That's like nearly half a day just on typing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I actually bought Text Expander probably 4 years ago, and I never used it. I think I set it up the first day I got it, and I used it for like 10 minutes and went, this is kind of cool, and then forgot about it. And then like, I think 3 years later, somebody was on the podcast talking about Text Expander, and I was like, oh yeah, I have that. I should try to use that. And ever since, I've been like hooked on it. I've been programming like everything into it.
Yeah.
Like for my name is literally 2 syllables if you say my first and last name.
Yeah.
And I still program that into Text Expander. So it's like if I hit semicolon M, it'll put my name out there. Like stuff like that.
That's good.
Sorry. I was gonna say I got a new MacBook last year after I spilled tea on my old one, and it had to be one of the first things I downloaded, because otherwise I start typing things and I'm doing little snippets and nothing's happening, and I feel like my computer's broken. So it had to be one of the first things that I downloaded when I got the new computer.
Do you back up all of your snippets like to the cloud now, so that if that happens again, you have all your snippets saved?
Yeah, I do. I think it's all on the cloud with them, and it's good because like Haley, my wife, she helps with some emails, so we have some email templates set up that she uses, but I can go and edit them, and if I can change them if I want, and I can edit them. She can then keep using them. She may not even know that I've edited them, but because we have the shared snippets, she just gets those changes, so it's great.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. And here I am over here, the one doing most of the correspondence and the back and forth, and I've been hearing Text Expander forever, and I haven't taken the plunge yet. So today's the day, damn it. Awesome. It's happening.
Well, did you have more on this topic?
No, I was thinking we go to podcasting a little bit.
Yeah, I
sure.
think with the last few minutes here that we have, like I wanted to kind of chat about your podcast and what you're doing there and why you decided on podcasting. And so let's just go there. What's the rundown? Why did you decide on podcasting as your one of your content mediums, and how has that worked out for you so far?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like, so I started it, I think maybe 2015, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
And the reason for starting, it was partly just I was thinking about my own consumption of content, and podcast is one of my favorite ways that I learn new things. There are lots of blogs out there, but I would say it's not that often during the week that I'll see. I know some people are obviously very different, but I won't, if I see a blog post on Twitter or something, or I come across it, maybe I'll go and have a quick read and skim it. But it's very rare that I'll sit down and read like a good long blog post. I kind of skim and almost like search for the post that I need on demand if I want to go and learn something. And so, I really enjoy writing for my blog, and I know some people enjoy reading. So I have my blog. And then I was thinking, well, I enjoy podcasts, and I've done all this work to create a blog post anyway. I'm going to do that anyway. So I've put the post is ready to go. It really doesn't take much extra work to record a podcast. So if I've spent an hour and a half writing a blog post, I can turn on my microphone, and in 15 minutes, I can have a blog post ready to go, ready to upload when I'm publishing. So I've done all the heavy lifting in coming up with the idea, fleshing out my ideas, writing it. And so when I record, it's a solo show. I do the occasional interview, but I'll literally read the post that I've written, not word for word, like I'll ad lib as I go, and I like to think it sounds pretty natural, like I'm just talking. But actually, it's nice having the blog post there because I've already organized my thoughts so that I'm not rambling. Like it's actually a really concise way of talking. And so I can just flick on my microphone. I can kind of just go through the blog post that I've written. And yeah, I know that some people are going to read it, but other people who are just at the gym or in the car or on their commute, they have 10 or 15 minutes so they can just go and listen to the podcast. So it's just giving people another way that they can kind of consume the content that I've already put effort into producing. So yeah, it started back in 2015 and I do about like a podcast a week, the occasional interview as well. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Like it's something I really enjoy doing. And yeah.
Do you know which one gets you more traction as far as like eyeballs on your brand between the podcast and the written content?
God, I have no idea. I am useless when it comes to looking at those numbers. I know I have Google Analytics and everything set up, but it's just not something I probably need to spend more time, or I need a VA to go and do some reports on me on numbers and things. So I really couldn't give you an answer.
I think you're pretty normal in that respect. Most people don't know. Yeah. We try our best to try to like kind of have it all sync up and try to track as best we can. But with podcasting, it's still kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to that stuff.
I had a call this morning and somebody said, "Oh, you've got 1 million views on your YouTube videos." And I was like, "Really? I had no idea."
That's awesome, though. Congrats, man. That's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah. I've seen subscribers because when I log in, you see the subscribers. I think it's about 7,000, which I mean, compared to some people is nothing. I mean, it's just slowly ticks up. But somebody said, "Yeah, you have 1 million views." I was like, "Wow, that's so cool!" Like I had no idea.
Yeah, there's YouTube now is a really good analytics backend that's pretty easy to read. So you might want to pop in there just to see your overall stats. But yeah, you could see, I mean, that's what's the beautiful thing with YouTube compared to podcasting is you can sort all sorts of data and then make better decisions on what topics resonating the most and where they're coming from and yada, 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 keywords.
Podcasts are getting there. But,
starting to, yeah. It's a slow grind. So I like the approach you take from the blog first and then go to the podcast and kind of repurpose more or less. We're hearing a lot of other podcasters do that.
Yeah, like I said, it's like I've already done all this work to create this content. I may as well just like put in an extra 15 to 30 minutes. And like at the start, it's definitely not going to be that quick. If you are starting a podcast, like you need to write that learning curve for a bit to learn your process and how to edit and get a podcast ready and uploaded. But now because I've done 133 episodes, I've got it like to be a pretty efficient process now. So I can record, very quick to edit, and have it ready to upload very quickly. So it's not a lot of extra work for a lot of extra value. Like all these people can now go and listen to the podcast. It's a huge amount of extra value, but for like an extra 15, 30 minutes of work. So it's, in terms of bang for buck, it's awesome. Yeah.
Have you had any, so when it came to actually growing your podcast and getting people listening, has there been anything that has been a sort of big driver for the podcast?
I think just consistency. I've been doing it, like I said, every week for like a few years now. And that's, I mean, I'm always taking on board people's ideas and feedback for the show and trying to learn what people like and what they don't like. But honestly, just consistency. It's one of those things. It does take time, like I said, to kind of learn your process, find your voice as well, get into that zone and get into a groove where you're, you've kind of differentiated yourself from other people. So, but I think just with more experience, with more practice, with consistency, that's when you can hopefully create something really unique for yourself and kind of carve yourself out a little, as being different from other people. Yeah. So just make it a consistent habit, commit to turning up every week or every 2 weeks, however often you want to do it. And making it a regular part of your routine is getting out podcasts. And, it won't take long. And after 6 months, you'll be surprised at how far you've come and how much you've learned.
It's so true, man. And even if it's just, like you said, I love your approach. I'm looking at your blog actually actively because I see that you're embedding the podcast right there on your blog post. And, you have all sorts of different ways for people to interact with your content. And you're kind of covering all your bases. You said YouTube's growing as well. So at a minimum, folks listening, because we talk about podcasting all the time on here, big proponents of the medium, but a lot of folks overthink it. So I love how simple the approach you've taken is. And those are honestly, this simple approach has been some of the most successful podcasts that we know of in our circle or have done this. So it's really cool.
And I always think about as well, what is the best way to deliver value through the channel that you're using. So like I did a post a few weeks ago, I think it was 7 often overlooked ways that you could be more productive on your computer. And I was talking about keyboard shortcuts and using a monitor and all these things. And so in the podcast, I kind of talk through, these are the 7 ways, and I just kind of talk through it, and anyone can listen to that. And then the blog post, I think, serves as a really nice recap. So anyone who's like, oh, let me, I listened to the podcast, Paul mentioned something about this tool, they can go to the blog. The blog serves as a really nice summary, and then there's some links in there to things they might want to go and try. But then I actually did a video as well. I don't do this for every blog and podcast, but it made sense for that particular one. I was like, I may as well do a video because then I can demonstrate some of these things. In the video, it wasn't like I was repeating the blog post. It was actually more, let me show you these 7 ways that I've talked about. And so again, maybe you've listened to the podcast or you've read the blog, but you can then go and quickly look at that video and see, oh, let me see, he talked about text expanded. Let me just see how he set that up, for example. And so the video kind of serves a different purpose to the blog, which serves a different purpose to the podcast. So for that particular one, I really did cover all my bases. I don't do that every time, but each channel, there's benefits no matter what channel you use. Video, you can communicate things in video that you can't in blog or podcast. And with podcasts, you can't share links that easily. So that's why a blog is useful.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love what you're doing there, because you're hitting them where the customer lives, or maybe not customer, but the viewers listening or reading or viewing. It's all the modalities. Everybody has a different way of learning.
Well, that's something that I don't think like a lot of people quite grasp about podcasts, is that by creating a podcast, you're essentially putting yourself in, 20 more search engines, right? You're putting yourself into Apple search engines. You're putting more content into Google search engines. You're putting more content into Spotify search engines. The list goes on of all the different players, iHeartRadio and TuneIn. And there's so many different player apps that by having a podcast element, you are able to get into all of these other potential platforms where you can get discovered. And I think what you're doing is brilliant. If you're already writing written content, convert that into an audio as well. Just read it and turn that into a podcast. And that, it opens you up to people who may not have otherwise discovered you.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because podcasts, I think historically people have thought, I can't start a podcast. It's somewhat of an intimidating thing to start because there's a little bit of a technical aspect to it. It's getting a lot easier, but I think there's a bit of a fear at the beginning of like, oh my gosh, I have to start a podcast. What's this thing? An RSS feed, and I have to submit that to iTunes. How does that work? Like, oh, this seems way too hard. It's actually easier than you think. And with other services now, like Anchor, which wasn't around when I started, you can now upload straight to Anchor. They will distribute it to all the different channels, so it makes it really easy. So I think it's definitely getting easier, because definitely like even just like a few years ago, it's almost easier to edit a video and put it on YouTube than it was to create a podcast, which kind of sounds like a video should be harder, surely. But no, I think podcasts, because they've kind of come from a slightly more technical background, some people have been put off. But the good news is it's getting easier.
And the data is coming around too. There are more technologies coming out where you can collect the data and have more of a direct response from podcasting, and so there's exciting stuff happening in that world. And
No, it's fun, and like we were saying, Google and all these other places are starting to index. Apple just released today, as of this recording, or maybe it was yesterday, that they're going to start having a text search option for all podcasts. So you could look up keywords and it'll source one of many podcasts with those keyword strings.
Cool.
So
I mean, Apple's answering Spotify
totally
answering Spotify, and Google is what's happening is because Google, they just released an update fairly recently that indexes audio as well, and can actually start to read audio files and index based on the discussions that you had. And I think Apple saw that Google was doing that, and now Apple's like, we do it too. So
it's a race.
Yeah.
Well, to kind of wrap stuff up here, because I know you time blocked an hour, and about 2.5 minutes you're going to just run away and disappear on us. We always like to ask, what's like a go-to book that you recommend, maybe to your clients or just people you know? It could be business or life, but you're an interesting one because you actually do a bunch of book summaries, and I don't know how you're going to select one, because it seems like I don't know, how many summaries have you done on your website? Do you know?
I cheat a little bit. My wife helps me with them. I don't read them all. But we have done. I think there's around 80 to 90 at this point in time.
Wow, they're amazing, man. I mean, I looked through a handful of them, and that was a question I was going to ask, is who writes them, but I didn't want to put you on the spot like that. Like, do you actually read all these? but yeah, you guys do an amazing job. So I guess, are there maybe a couple that stand out, maybe for different reasons, that you recommend?
Yeah, I'll try and pick some ones that maybe are less well known, but I'm going to have to mention some anyway. Like, so the 4-Hour Work Week was still is kind of my Bible. When I was first starting my business, it was very much kind of tried to have a lot of those principles and follow that mindset of creating an efficient business and automation, that kind of thing. So the 4-Hour Work Week has definitely been a very important book for me that I've reread a number of times over the years. I've probably read it 4 or 5 times by now. So that was good. Start with Why, that I mentioned earlier, was really important for me, just helping find my sense of direction, that kind of purpose. So for anyone kind of struggling with what should I be doing? Like what kind of job or business would I enjoy doing? Start with Why is a good one to get you thinking about that. Other books that I've really enjoyed that have had an impact, The Obstacle is the Way. Ryan Holiday, the author, is actually one of my favorite authors. I really enjoy his writing. He has a really good knack for taking can be somewhat intimidating topics like Stoicism, like philosophy, that is now becoming very popular. And I would say Ryan is he's a big reason of why I think Stoicism is becoming popular. He now runs the Daily Stoic as well, which is a great newsletter. And just his writing, I really enjoy his writings. The Obstacle is the Way, which actually introduced me to Stoic philosophy as well, was great. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, and I didn't even know there was a daily newsletter, or a newsletter from Ryan on the Daily Stoic. I have the book, and I read that almost daily. But yeah. Awesome.
No, it's a great newsletter. I don't sign up to a lot of newsletters. I get a very few, but Daily Stoic is one of them, and just really good, nice little, very different. Just gets you thinking about something philosophical and just how to be better or more mindful on a daily basis. That nice little bit of wisdom in your inbox.
Yeah, that's a stamp of approval for a newsletter. If you're approving it, awesome.
Cool.
Well, let's where should folks go check you out? I know you do a lot. What's the best place they can go check it all out?
Yeah, just you can Google me, or my website is Paul Miners. So that's Paul the normal way, the only way. Miners, minors.com. And you can check out my blog, the podcast. There's some resources and things, and you can learn everything about me on there.
Right on, man. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a fun time.
Yeah, been awesome.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Before taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.